Good morning and welcome to AI Daily. Happy Friday. And we have three fantastic stories for you today covering some military LLM, covering some geopolitics, and covering a lawsuit against ChatGPT. So let's kick off with our first story today, which is Scale AI Donovan. So Donovan is Scale. It's their opportunity to try to bring LLMs to governments and defense. They're working with Cohere, the LLM provider, and they're really working kind of broad spectrum right now. So talking to military for decision making, talking to government employees for ingesting data. They had a couple interesting stories in here, but also military has not been the most open to LLMs yet. Farb, what do you think of their kind of positioning here and like the product itself?
I think it's clever to offer this free trial to any government employee. They've clearly taking a few angles here. One is this free trial is important for any government employee. Two, there is a lot of China related news, features in this trial that you can use. They seem to be trying to position themselves as a real provider for the U.S. government, U.S. defense, and jumping right into the geopolitical storm that the world is in these days. So kudos to them for the guts, and let's see what the practical outcomes are.
Connor, what do you think of the product in terms of kind of the chat interface? It looks like they're ingesting data, probably doing a lot of embeddings, and maybe throwing up a map, letting you interact with some of it. Anything interesting on the product side you saw?
Yeah, I think they're pretty focused on this like wide range of very specific data that's normally hard to interact with, especially if it's classified, et cetera. They have several data sets they preloaded, including think tank reports on AI, narcotics documents, Chinese technical documents, cloud environment documents, and several unclassified assessments of Chinese military capabilities. So all very Chinese focused, targeting this .military, .gov emails, and anyone can sign up and go use it. And they're trying to show that, hey, these data sets are really useful to interact with our platform. And you can even upload your own data sets, interact with our platform. I think they're really
You
trying to
know,
scale. Go ahead, Verb.
I was saying they make an interesting point that nobody else is taking it easy on this stuff. So either step up to the game or get left behind, which is tough to argue with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to interact with this type of data normally, but they've working with AWS GovCloud, they're working with Cohere to make it secure and compliant in the end, which is the most important part of this.
Yeah, there's another product called Ask Sage from a previous Air Force CIO. So kind of same in the LLM space, a chat interface to interact with these documents. I think there's a lot of open space here. They definitely need to get FedRAMP approved, as of right now until they finally get that. No one's really going to use this for anything serious. But I think LLMs will have big potential for, DoD in terms of reading operational documents, et cetera. So good to see someone working on it. Our second story of today is a lawsuit against ChatGPT. So two authors came out and said, "Hey, we saw that you could generate summaries and paragraphs from our books. You clearly used our books in your training data. You're profiting off our IP and our works, and we want to put a lawsuit out there." I think the two main questions that come to mind for me are, what does this actually play out to be? Is there a scenario in which these lawsuits actually go through and they got to redo some of these training data? Or is this just, a couple of people trying to make a name for themselves? Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, internally, OpenAI uses Books 2 for their data set to train GPT-3 and GPT-4. Everyone speculates it's very similar because of the size and some other things to Books 3, which is an open data set by Lion. Books
Hmm.
3 is mostly torrented books, and that's really the only way to train these types of models.
Yep.
So there's no way to know if these specific authors' books are in there. It could just have their summaries in there, and GPT-4 can just repeat those summaries. No way to
Okay.
know, but they're trying to find out apparently.
Farb, what do you think of this? Is there any pathway in this these things go through at a court level? There might be retrainings, or is this kind of all pie in the sky?
I think one possible way, this is like the first thing that came off the top of my head is you have a scenario where, you know, OpenAI is going to say, this is our proprietary information. We don't just tell everybody
Yeah.
what our training data is. And we're obviously not going to just roll over every time someone wants to throw a lawsuit out and we're going to be like, cool, let's put all of our, uh, training data into the discovery process in the courts. So make it publicly available forever for everyone. They're going to fight against that. And I think the court's going to, say something along the lines of, okay, well, how do we resolve this in a way where you can maintain your secrecy over your training information and we can get down to whether or not you've done illegal things? And there's lots of approaches there. And I think one approach for OpenAI could essentially be, hey, I can't quite tell you whether or not this is training off of this book, or like Connor was saying, it could be training off of open summaries of the book. Not really sure how you might get better OpenAI summarizations of books off of the training of summarizations than you will off of the actual books themselves. And so they could theoretically go to the court and be, hey, here's an example of um, a whole ton of summaries of a certain book. And here we can show you that we can now create very convincing summaries of this book. That's probably all that's happening here. And since that's possible, that's a plausible, scenario. And we're not going to give you access to all of our training data for you to figure out whether that's the case or not. And, there's lots of summarizations of things out there. So is it illegal to summarize a summarization? It's not
Yeah,
going to be an easy one to dig through, and I'm guessing one side's got a little bit more money for lawyers than the other.
I
I
think that's very
agree.
well said. It's kind of a plausible deniability thing. OpenAI can prove plausibly that they can generate these summaries just off summaries. That's perfectly legal. So
Just to
And
let OpenAI know, I'm not currently available to join your legal team, but if that changes, I'll let you all know.
I think it's interesting too, because there's this same, I guess, class of people went from saying, hey, AI is just, advanced search and autocomplete, and there's no problem with Google being able to search books. And at this point now they're saying, okay, wait, no, it's actually impacting profits possibly. So interesting to see this kind of switch and people saying, hey, AI is actually taking our IP. It's not just search. So we'll see how it plays out.
yeah, that's a very interesting contrast there because like Google Books, you can technically go search any part of any book on Google Books and see that whole page of the entire book. People don't know if that was used to train Bard. Google says they can use anything, right? So
Yeah, Google updated their terms and conditions too. Anything on the open internet they can train on. So we'll see how it plays out. Our third story of today is around China and restricting their access to even more GPUs. So we talked about on the show, before some of the export controls that are coming into play, not selling NVIDIA GPUs, A100s, H100s to China. The main loophole that people have been finding is, hey, well, a Chinese company can just call up AWS, call up Google Cloud, and rent some of those things. So the administration's trying to put another closing loophole in that and saying, hey, big cloud providers, you're not going to be like letting these companies access these chips. um, Probably will impact some of their business. So I wonder how lobbying's going around that. Farb, what do you think?
So I think AI is the geopolitical space for the rest of our lives, probably. And, it's impossible to look at these things in the vacuum of just themselves. You have to place them in the context of the larger geopolitical environment that we're in. So, for example, China's restricting some exports on metals that are important for semiconductors. The US does this. A lot of times these are just forms of negotiation tactics, so that when they come to the table to make an agreement, whenever you're negotiating, you want to have things that you're willing to give up to the other side.
yeah,
And so you create a whole list of things that are, you say you're super important for you, and we're not willing to budge on this. And then when you come to the table, you start budging on a few of these, and they budge on these things. And sometimes, if you do it correctly, you end up budging on the things that you didn't actually care about.
Yep.
So, in any negotiation, both sides are posturing, both sides are putting themselves in a position so that they can get to where they want to on the other side of a negotiation. This does, and that context doesn't even include a ton more geopolitical context when you talk about the deep states of both sides, chatting with each other. They're playing their own internal negotiation games and control and power games. But that kind of was my original point. AI is the surface area for geopolitics for some time to come, because it not only is intellectual and information based, it's also physical and based on semiconductors and even from mining to intellectual ideas. The AI space covers it, so we're going to see a lot more of this type of thing.
Well said, Connor.
Okay.
yeah, like the U.S. government doesn't really care. They don't really care that TikTok was training its algorithms and AI on A100s. But now that platforms like Donovan and other like more military capabilities are come to fruition and come to be more useful, that's where all this kind of ramps up. And that's why we saw, as we said, US banned chip exports, China bans metal exports, and now US is going to ban cloud computing.
Yep.
So it's a back and forth until, again, we meet at the table in the middle.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about philosophically how important, and Farb always talks well on it, how important like the microprocessor is now. And I think 10 years ago, you go onto AWS, Google Cloud, and if you had the money, you get whatever you want. But as you see compliance controls make their way into these platforms, it's a whole new world. So interesting as always. Well, what are y'all seeing outside of this, Connor?
Yeah, I saw Focus Transformer. It's contrastive training for context scaling. It's a new paper. Basically, the gist of it was they have a long llama model in it. They were able to fine tune llama models all the way up to 65B and expand it to a context length of 256,000. So impressive or definitely interesting. But like we talked about yesterday with the dilated transformers, the dilated attention, it remains to see if these super long context lengths are as useful or as capable as our current context lengths, just because
Yeah.
they're architected very differently.
Yeah.
I saw a new text to video uh, demo, and I can't quite remember which one it was right now. I apologize, but really, that's not really so much the point. It was just kind of interesting to me how much room there still is to go in the text to video. These are clips that are only a few seconds long, and yet they're so unusable and unbelievable, and unbelievable in the sense that you don't believe it's good video. So it's amazing to see how challenging the problem of text to video is, and how unsolved it is. Even when you're just trying to create a few seconds, it can be really difficult. And so you got to imagine it's probably not a computation problem to generate 3 seconds of something convincing. It's not like you can't get enough GPUs or to do something like that, or TPUs to do something like that. It's just more a question of, I don't think the algos are there yet.
There's
No,
a lot
it's a
more
super tough
research
problem.
and algorithms and work that's got to come out of that still, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, following on the text to video, I saw this AI web TV. It's a live stream of these generative AI videos. They're using zero scope. Maybe that was the one you saw far, but yeah, you can easily paint the picture of how cool this will be a couple years from now. But it's still such early days here. So really cool stuff. Well, thank you all as always for tuning in. If you made it to the end of the show, and we will see you again on Monday.
Have a
Peace.
great week.